Madam Acting Vice-Chancellor, I have the honor to request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa on Abdul Minty.
I confer the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa on Abdul Minty. Congratulations. I now call on Dr. Minty to deliver the graduation address.
The Acting Vice-Chancellor, the Dean of the Faculty of Science, professors and academics at the university, the registrar, the graduates, parents and members of the family of the graduates, and all present. This is in many ways a truly historic day to celebrate and honor hundreds and thousands of known and unknown persons throughout the world, and the African, Asian, and Caribbean countries, and others, for their brave and often long struggle to eliminate apartheid, the apartheid system, and create conditions for peace and development. Among some of the most prominent and inspiring leaders that I had the privilege to work for and with over several decades included Father Trevor Huddleston, Barbara Castle MP, Oliver Tambo, and Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, all who also helped to form the anti-apartheid movement. Father Huddleston was recalled by the Anglican Church to the UK as he was beginning to present a major threat to the apartheid regime as an outstanding spokesman for the oppressed majority. Barbara Castle became extremely active during the early 60s, including arranging mass mobilization against South Africa's membership of the Commonwealth, and after the Sharpeville massacre, worked to transform the boycott movement into the anti-apartheid movement. Oliver Tambo, as Deputy President of the ANC, worked ceaselessly to build up international solidarity and provided great foresight and leadership to most of the world. And Julius Nyerere, as leader of the Tanganyika African National Union, appealed for the consumer boycott of South African goods and developed into a formidable leader of African and other states, and was an astute tactician for all. They were, with many others, all founder members of the British anti-apartheid movement. In 1962, I was asked by Oliver Tambo to become the honorary secretary of the British anti-apartheid movement because Barbara Castle had said that if I was elected to that position, she would then agree to become the president of the anti-apartheid movement. Mr. Tambo told me that AAM should not become an extension of the ANC, and I should draw support directly from the British people. After completing my master's degree at University College London, I carried on research into South Africa's defense and security policies and was preparing for a PhD. In 1969, the anti-apartheid movement published a small booklet by me entitled South Africa's Defense Strategy, which outlined the regime's determination to expand its war throughout Southern Africa and also begin to look at ways not only to focus on the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. All South Africa's major trading partners continued to claim that their nuclear cooperation with South Africa was only for peaceful purposes and that the Pretoria regime did not have any nuclear weapons capability. Then, on the opening day of an international conference on action against apartheid in Lagos on 5th August 1977, the world learned about the secret Kalahari nuclear test site through satellite pictures. Some Western leaders appealed to Pretoria not to detonate a nuclear weapon. The anti-apartheid movement asked how the Pretoria regime could explode what they apparently did not have. Among the Western leaders who were at the Lagos conference included Olof Palme of Sweden, David Steele of Britain, and Prime Minister Oddvar Nordli of Norway. In view of the urgency of this development, after consultations, the UN Special Committee Against Apartheid appealed to the anti-apartheid movement in Lagos to establish a world campaign against military and nuclear collaboration with South Africa, with me as director. The AAM agreed, and Norway offered to host it in Oslo jointly with Sweden. It was a small office, but anti-apartheid movements and others across the world supported it, and it was able to play a key role in exposing South Africa as a growing military and nuclear threat. It functioned from 1998-94 under the patronage of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere and other frontline heads of states, with the sponsors including Olof Palme, David Steele, and Coretta Scott King. The UN Security Council then adopted a mandatory arms embargo against South Africa, which did not include nuclear. But despite this shortcoming, it was important because the apartheid regime was expanding its war against the African frontline states and others. The Western countries did not allow the Security Council to establish an effective committee to monitor the arms embargo. So the World Campaign had to do much of that work and expose violations through various conferences, seminars, and via the frontline states, the non-aligned movement, and the United Nations. The AAM and the World Campaign had to work against very heavy odds, as some even attempted to plant misinformation, which, if used by us, would expose us for making false claims and decisively damage our credibility. But we made no false claims and were not found to be wrong in any of our allegations over the years, so could not be undermined in this way. We therefore managed to retain our credibility by relying on truth. During 1960 to 61, they began an initiative to nominate Chief Albert Luthuli president of the ANC for the Nobel Peace Prize. I was at Leeds University and found that some of our academics and members of national legislatures were among those who could nominate candidates for the Peace Prize, and I lobbied some of them, including Labour MP Richard Crossman and others, to do so. Thus, in 1961, the 1960 Nobel Peace Prize was conferred on Chief Albert Luthuli in Oslo. Later, in 1984, Desmond Tutu was also awarded the Peace Prize, and later in 1993, Nelson Mandela and F.W. de Klerk. During the early 60s, I was appointed as the representative of the South African Non-Racial Olympic Committee, and when Dennis Brutus, its leader, was arrested in South Africa, I was asked to represent SANROC at the 1962 Olympic Conference. We lobbied all representatives at the Baden-Baden Conference, and in 1963, South Africa was suspended from the International Olympic Committee. The international sports boycott thereafter developed greater momentum. In 2008, Democratic South Africa nominated me for the post of Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, to be decided by the pro-Western IAEA Board of Governors. I wanted to ensure that developing countries would be allowed to create real capacity to promote atomic science for peace. What used to happen was that experts from developing countries would be taken to different northern countries for short courses, but they were not given much equipment to build their own capacity and expertise to advance themselves and promote scientific and economic development in their countries. This could not be done without having appropriate nuclear technology and equipment. Some claimed that South Africa had developed what it had developed was a credible nuclear deterrent. But the question arose as to whom it was meant to deter, since no developing country had any nuclear weapons. Indeed, deterrence in this case was not to deter the nuclear weapons capacity of others, but instead to threaten and dominate them and create fear among those who supported or were involved in the African liberation struggle. Indeed, what was new is that Western countries even argued at times against further sanctions and other anti-apartheid measures because they claimed that the apartheid regime was desperate and could unleash a nuclear catastrophe. Thus, in this context, no one should confront the Pretoria regime. In conclusion, I would like to thank the University of the Witwatersrand for today having conferred upon me an honorary doctorate in science, not only for the work I did, but for all the many others all over the world who often at great cost actively supported us in the struggle against apartheid and for peace and development. I thank you.